Hello guys, this is Olayeni Dear Kolola Daniels, popularly known as Dear Ko Spectre, and this is another episode of Dear Ko Talks Law. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about land law. Yes, we are going to be talking about land law, and then basically 4 things to know about customary land tenure system. So before you start learning customary land tenure system, before we go in depth into customary land tenure system, what are the 4 things that you are supposed to know first? That's basically what this video is to answer. What are the 4 things that you're supposed to know before you go into the customary land tenure system? Do you understand? So yes, the first thing is that under the customary land tenure system, ownership is not by one person. Ownership is by the community. Do you understand? The ownership of the land is not by a person but by the community. So here the community can be the whole of the state, the community can be the whole of the town, the community can be the whole of the streets. Do you understand? The community can even be just the family. Do you understand? So it depends. When you're talking about community, it can vary in certain circumstances. But you should know that it is not owned by a person, but owned by a community. So like I said earlier, the community can be a family. It can just be a family of 2 people. Do you understand? Like the father and then the mother, then the father died, and then the father left the property for just 2 people. Those 2 people are the owner of the property according to customary land tenure system. Do you understand? First thing, and this was held in the case of AMODU TIJANI versus Secretary of Southern Province. So for further understanding on what I mean when I say that, the ownership of land is by a community, let me gist you a little bit. Now, I was reading a book by Obasanjo titled My Watch. So yes, we are going to see the book on the screen right now. So I was reading that book by Obasanjo titled My Watch, and then he was giving a brief account of how the Yoruba people came to be in the chapter 2 of the part 1 of the book. When I was reading that part, he was talking about Oduduwa and Oba Lamurudu, that's King Lamurudu in Mecca, and all that, and how they chased Oduduwa and the Yoruba people. They were called Yaba. Y-A-R-B-A. They were called Yaba when they were leaving Mecca. Do you understand? So right from Mecca, Oduduwa started walking down until he stopped at Ile-Ife. But while Oduduwa was walking down from Mecca to Ile-Ife, he had to drop some people on the road because some were already aged. Do you understand? And they cannot walk far distances. Some were pregnant, some were aged, and other people with other reasons that may have to make them wait behind. So those people that had to wait behind were getting to that land for the first time. Do you understand how customary law evolved? Now, they were getting to the land for the first time, and you see, when they get to that land, they become the original settlers on that land, and then become the owner of the land. So those people are all jointly owners of the land. So when they are giving birth, their children become jointly owners of that particular land. Do you understand? That is how customary law system evolved and how it became a community thing. Do you understand? So apart from the whole Yoruba story that I said earlier, that's one of the reasons also why we have different forms of Yoruba, Ijesha Yoruba, Ekiti Yoruba, and all that, because while they were going, they were dropping, people on the road. Do you understand? So basically, those people that were dropped on the road become the owner of that particular land because they are the first settlers on the particular land, and that is how the whole customary law tenure system came about and how it evolved into a community thing and not an individual thing. Do you understand? The first thing is a customary law tenure system is a community thing and not an individual thing. The second thing, the fact that it's a community thing does not mean that an individual cannot use it. An individual can use it, however, he can only use it for enjoyment during his lifetime. Do you understand? An individual can use the land, but he can only use it as a form of enjoyment. So basically, you have your own portion of the land. Do you understand? Your own portion of the land will be allocated to you. Then when it's allocated, you don't own it. You only use it, do you understand, while you are alive. When you are dead, you cannot leave it to your children because it wasn't yours in the first place. Do you understand? It wasn't yours, therefore you cannot devise it to your children and say, hey, my son, come and take this particular land. It wasn't yours, and therefore you cannot give it up. Individuals use the land only for enjoyment. The third thing is that the land that is being owned by the community is controlled by one person known as the head, either the community head or the family head. He is like a trustee. Do you understand? Most times it's always like the most elderly person. Do you understand? But he is like a trustee. When you're talking about a trustee, there's a difference between trustee under the English law and trustee in this sense that I am calling. I'm going to make a video dedicated to that. The difference between trustee under the English form and then that kind of trustee we are referring to when we talk about the family head. I'm going to make a different video for that one. But for what we are talking right now, when you are talking about him being a trustee, then you are saying that he is the one in charge of the land. When it comes to giving out this particular portion to this particular person, he is the one in charge. Do you understand? You know, the second thing you need to know about customary law is that individuals can use the land for enjoyment. Then how do individuals get the land? They go to the family head and then they request for a particular portion of the land from either the family head or the community head. You can also see that in the case of Ali versus IKUSEBIALA. In the case of Ali versus IKUSEBIALA, that was where the court held that basically the family head is just there in the representative capacity of the family. He's just representing the interest of the family for the meantime, for the time being. Do you understand? The post of the family head is like that of corporation. Do you understand? The corporation never dies, but the head of corporation usually comes and goes. That's the same way the post of the family head never dies. However, people come and go. And so for the family head, for that post, what you do basically is that you are the one that administers the whole land for the people. Do you understand? So when one person says, I want the land, okay, you can have it. Do you understand? When one person says, this person is doing this to my land, this one is doing this to my land, you then begin to settle dispute amongst them on what this and this. Do you understand? So basically, the family head is different from the trustee in English form. The family head here, the legal estate here is not vested in the family head. In the English form, the legal estate is vested. So like I said, I'm going to make another video on that. Just for now, know one thing for as regards the family head. Is not the owner of the property. He's just there to manage and administer the property, just serving an administrative purpose. And then for the fourth thing, when you're talking about family property under this customary law, we are talking about the direct children of a particular person. That was held in the case of Lewis versus Bankole. That was held in the case of Lewis versus Bankole, that the direct children of a person is the family of that person. Do you understand? Now, when you're talking about the direct children, it was held in the case of Ricardo versus Abal that girls and boys are what they call direct children. So don't just think that it's restricted to boys. Do you understand? When you're talking about a family property, that's a family land under customary law, and we are looking at what exactly can we consider as family. In the case of Lewis versus Bankole, the direct children of the man is family. That is number one. In the case of Ricardo versus Abal, both boys and girls are regarded as the children. Do you understand? Although in some part of Igbo land, girls are not regarded as children for the sake of being entitled to the family property, and that can be seen in the case of Lopez versus Lopez. Do you understand? In Lopez versus Lopez, girls were not entitled. That is in some part of Igbo land. Girls were not entitled to the family property. But generally speaking, like in Ricardo and Abal, when you are talking about the direct offshoot of a particular person, that the direct children of a particular person as stated in the case of Lewis versus Bankole, then you are talking about both boys and girls. Also note that when we are talking about the family property, we are talking about just the children. You see the father's brother and his father's sister, or any other person related to the father, the uncle, the auntie, those people do not fall within what we deem fit as family for the sake of the family property. That was stated in the case of Suberu versus SUNMONU. In the case of Suberu versus SUNMONU, it was held that the relatives of that particular man or woman, that is the mother and father, were not said to be part of family for the sake of the family property. Do you understand? So when you're talking about family for family property, we are talking about just children, Lewis and Bankole. The children include both boys and girls, Ricardo versus Aban. But there are some society where children are only restricted to boys and not girls, Lopez versus Lopez. Relatives are not part of the family, only the children, the case of Suberu versus SUNMONU. However, there are instances where the man can now say, okay, I want to put this person and this person to be part of my family. If there is a declaration to the fact that the man wants other people to be part of the family, that means that there must have been a declaration. Then those other people that have been so mentioned will be part of the family. That is the case of SOGBESAN versus ADEBIYI. So in the case of SOGBESAN versus ADEBIYI, a man can say, I want these people to be part of my family apart from my children. Yes, my children, but I also want my brother, I also want this person, I also want that person. Do you understand? So basically what we are saying is this: when you are talking about, we have father, we have mother, and we have children, boys and girls. So now, according to customary law, this is what is termed as family. This is what is termed as family under customary law. Anything outside this is not family. Do you understand? So here you have the father, the mother, and then the children, which include one boy and one girl. For the purpose of this example, I am saying that it's just one boy and one girl. They can have like 50 children. Those 50 children will be part of family. But right now, one boy, one girl. Do you understand that? So now when we are talking about family, do you understand? We are saying that this is what is called family. And then in the case of SOGBESAN versus ADEBIYI, a father here can name his brother to be part of the family, or a sister to be part of the family, or any other person to be part of the family. But there must be a declaration to that effect. There must be a declaration saying, I want this person. The declaration could be in a will, it could be oral or something like that. But there must be a declaration saying, I want this person to be part of my family for the sake of the family property. Do you understand? But fall short of that declaration, then you cannot have a family, you cannot have the brother or sister being entitled to the family property. Also note that a widow is not entitled to the family property. Now, when you are talking about a widow, we are saying that the father now is dead. Now, all we have is the mother. Do you understand? The mother here becomes the widow. So, what we are saying under customary land tenure system is that this woman is not entitled to family property. Do you understand? So that is the case of NEZIANYA versus OKAGBUE. NEZIANYA versus OKAGBUE says that a widow here, when the father is dead, the widow is not entitled to the family property. Do you understand? But the only people entitled to the family property are the children. And in the case where the father has made a declaration, any person named outside, where there is nobody named outside, strictly the children will be entitled to the family property. That is the case of Lewis versus Bankole. Do you understand? And also, grandchildren are not part of the family property, except where the children are dead. That is also the case of Lewis versus Bankole. So now, let us say that this particular boy has given birth to a girl. Do you understand? Or a boy, anyone. To a girl or a boy. Now, I'm just giving that as an example. So if this boy has given birth, if this boy is still alive, let's say this is the house here. Do you understand? Now, according to customary law, this house can only be owned by this boy and this girl when the father is dead. The mother cannot be owner. Do you understand? Cannot be entitled to it. The only persons that are entitled to it is the boy and the girl. Do you understand? So now, where the boy has given birth to another boy or a girl, you see, this boy and this girl are not entitled to this particular property. This boy and this girl cannot be entitled to this property except where this one is dead. If this one does not die, they are not entitled to this property. So those are the 4 things that you are supposed to do before you go into family property in quotes. Do you understand? The first thing is that family property is not owned by one person, it is owned by a community, it is owned by a commune. Do you understand? The second thing is that individuals can use the property for the meantime for their enjoyment, just for the meantime. They cannot give it out to someone else except the family head, authorizes that. When the family head doesn't authorize that, then they can't give it out to someone else. Do you understand? Number 3, the family head is not the owner of the property, but it's just serving an administrative purpose to administer the property, to manage the property. Then number 4, when you're talking about family property is only for the children. That is here, the boy and the girl. The mother, who in turn becomes a widow when the father is dead, is not going to be entitled to the property. That's the case of NEZIANYA versus OKAGBUE. Do you understand? No other party apart from the children would be entitled to that family property except the father authorizes that by declaration before his death. Do you understand? That's the case of SOGBESAN versus ADEBIYI. Do you understand? Now, grandchildren are not entitled to the property except one of their parents are dead. So if their parent is dead, then you'll be entitled to the property. That is also the case of LEKS versus BANKOLE. I hope you guys understand how this family property. Before we go in depth into family property, that's the reason why I tell you 4 things to know about family property before you move on. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you click the subscribe button, and then you also like this video and share it for other law students in other universities. Thank you very much.